In fact, let's put those two things together. Tom Brokaw continues with us at the other end of the hall here. Tom, Hillary significantly ahead of Obama in the exit polling on women voters, 47-34, having lost that category by 5% to Obama in Iowa, and last 3 days deciders, a 38-38 tie in New Hampshire. Is it possible to make that correlation, to put those two statistics together and suggest that emotion, personality, letting the guard down yesterday may have helped Hillary Clinton significantly into this position where we see with 45% of the vote in, she's ahead by 3%?
Well, I don't know whether you'd say significantly or not, but I do think that New Hampshire has a long, long history of saying, we'll decide on our own terms. Don't take us for granted. Last Friday night, Tim and I were with two New Hampshire political operatives, one a third generation, the other a fourth generation New Hampshire man. They both said, look, the independents probably will go to either McCain or to Obama, but don't overlook the fact that she has a very solid grip on women and the Democratic organization in the state, headed by former Democratic woman governor Jean Shaheen. And yesterday, I do think that her showing of vulnerability, which was real in my judgment, probably did give some people some pause. And the assumption has been, both in terms of his appearances and everything that has been said on this channel and almost every other news channel that has been covering this campaign in the last 24 to 36 hours, is that Obama's going to win this one going away. And New Hampshire residents like to make the judgments for themselves. They've been doing it for as long as I can remember. I just had a wonderful note from a friend of mine of watching the McCain speech. I think that John McCain won in New Hampshire in part because he's perfectly cast for that state. He's a war hero. He's roguish. He's been there before. We remember in 2000 when he won by 18 points. And then he made that speech tonight, and my friend in Montana emailed me saying, I'll bet McCain's victory speech drove his supporters into deep regret and the owners of NyQuil into despair. Which is probably a pretty good summary. I think John McCain will be better served by returning to form, which is improvisational, on the stump, taking questions and presenting himself as an authentic, against-the-type politician, even though he has served in the Senate for a long time at this point.
Well, at least nobody here tonight can be accused of kicking this man when he was down. at least we did it.
Well, listen, the other thing is about McCain, you have to say this. You know, everybody was writing him off last summer. His staff, his longest-serving staff, his closest friends left. The campaign was in deep financial difficulty, and John McCain got on the trail with Cindy on his own again. And it does remind you, as I've said here before, that this is a guy who spent 5.5 years being tortured almost every day. And as he alluded to the fact in his appearances today and again tonight, he's been through it before. He's there for the long haul. And I must say, physically, he's looked better in the last couple of months than I've seen him in some time.
You know, along those lines, Tom, someone, Anthony Eden, once said of Churchill, all of our hero to most of us, that it's one thing to be courageous perhaps in a moment of impulse during a war, during a battle, and that's unbelievable. But there's another kind of courage, which is to withstand repeated failure and disappointment and surprising setbacks. And McCain does that over and over again, guys. Over and over again, this guy has a hard time. He has a hard time with his own party. He has a hard time in losing in South Carolina after his family was in many ways ridiculed and, I think, abused in that campaign, that primary in South Carolina in 2000. And he came back, and tried to make friends with the cultural right. He tried to make friends with the president. He tried to win. He lost the campaign fight in many ways several months ago, and he kept coming back. And he found a new strength at his age, and as well as taking those barbs for being old, and he took it, and he keeps going. And I think that that's a special kind of courage here, guys. And he made one mistake. He used a prepared speech tonight, but we can't we all put that in perspective? Obviously, he read the speech, thought it was pretty good, and decided to read it. Yeah. That was a mistake. Anyway, thank you, Tom. We're watching the Democratic race, which, of course, is the big story tonight. It is an incredible story, if you think about it. This race, which is now still fairly close, 4,000. It looks like Hillary has been holding on to that lead since we began to count tonight. You can't discount it anymore. She's firming up that lead. She's holding on to it. Nothing's clear yet by our analysts. Nobody knows who's going to win officially at NBC. But look at that tonight, because if she wins tonight, She's got a leg up on the predictors, on the pundits, on people like me who are reading the polls now for 3 days and believing them. She's able to say, not only am I the comeback kid, I'm the victor. And that's much better than the comeback kid. And Barack Obama, I will still say, has given the most inspiring speeches that I've heard. And so this race is real between two very interesting combatants in the Democratic Party. Let's go right now to Mike Barnicle, who's up in Manchester. Michael, surprises, surprises, but you know, politics is, as someone said an hour ago, phenomenal. It is not predictable.
Well, politics is incredible, and the emotion of politics is incredible, and it proves once again that, you know, you have to play the games, you have to have the elections. But I have to tell you, the scope of the conversations between you and Keith, I have found phenomenal. You've gone from Joey Giardello to Lawrence of Arabia to Winston Churchill. It's amazing. By the way, Keith and Chris, you should know that the bellman here, the head bellman here at the Radisson Hotel in Manchester, is very pleased because John McCain read one of his lines that he submitted to him. I had to get it in. Everybody else has been jumping on the video.
Dear.
Who needs Bob Trump?
Just wait a second. Just put me back on second here for a second. Let me just do it now. NBC News would like to issue a quick apology to Senator John McCain. Okay, let's go back to it now.
You know, Chris, this is right up your alley. I bumped into Lou D'Alessandro, State Senator Lou D'Alessandro here in Manchester, New Hampshire, State Senator from Manchester, in the lobby of the hotel just behind us here. He supported Hillary Clinton. He's a longtime power in state Democratic politics. This was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I asked him what he thought was going to happen. He said, I'm going to tell you one thing. He said, it's not going to be anywhere near what you guys, your polls are showing. It's not going to be 10 points. It's going to be closer to 5. Turns out that he has been closer than any of the polls that all of us have been reading. And again, it gets back to your original point that it's such a marvelous thing when the American people here in New Hampshire come out and vote on Election Day. You really, when they get inside that booth, the pollsters be damned, go away, the pundits, see you later. They're going to vote their heart, and emotion plays a huge part in it. And clearly, you'd have to think that the emotion shown by Mrs. Clinton just this past weekend, just yesterday, might have had somewhat of a significant impact on this race.
I wonder, Michael, us being men, that it may have helped her with women. Nora pointed out, Nora O'Donnell just a few moments ago, that her numbers among women were dramatically to her advantage. You never know in this situation. We've never seen anything like it, where you have a male, Barack Obama, run against a female. At what point does tough combat give way to sympathy? And at what point do people say, give her a break? And at what point does somebody say she's breaking under pressure? What is the standard here? Is it you have no emotion, that you're tough, or is it you're human?
I think New Hampshire's a very unique place. I mean, it's not the west side of Manhattan. It's not Southern California. It's not Florida. It's not a big state. You've got working class towns like Laconia and Claremont and Manchester itself, Nashua, New Hampshire, to the south of here. They're all working class towns. Many, many homes here, households here, have the two parents both working, not hedge fund managers.
Right.
Maybe the wife is working in a Dunkin' Donuts. They're hard-working people up here, and that may have been a factor, the one that you just alluded to, the sympathy factor. Was she ganged up on at the debate? Why did she break down in exhaustion and in tears? You can just sense. You can just sense these women in this state, some percentage of them saying, you know, leave her alone. Leave her alone. It's tough enough being a woman. It's tough enough being a waitress. I got to worry about the kids. I've got to worry about health care costs. Leave her alone. You can sort of now sense that may have happened.
You know, I remember Richard Nixon back in '68 when he gave that great speech about the little kid out in Yorba Linda, the poor kid listening to the train go by at night and thinking that someday he could follow it into greatness, into great American history. And afterwards, his voice cracked a bit when he made that change. And then later on, he talked to the speechwriter, of course, Bill Safire, and he said, what did you think of that speech? And Safire said, pretty good. And Nixon said, what did you think of that part where my voice cracked? Ha! Ha! Nixon had that figured out all along. Anyway, I know Hillary Clinton was completely spontaneous the other day.